expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight.
Free! Alright, but have you heard this one though?
Dear oh dear, the BBC find themselves in hot water tonight after broadcasting vile chants about Israel and Palestine to the nation, live on air. Should the Beeb now turn their back on Glastonbury? Dame Priti Patel certainly thinks so, and she joins me live in 5 short minutes. Also tonight...
Nigel Farage. Unlike Nigel Farage, which Nigel Farage have done the same, you have to ask about Nigel Farage. I'm from Farage. And unlike Nigel Farage stands for none of this.
I wonder what he dreams about at night. That was the PM just weeks ago. His poll numbers are still in the gutter. So why is Sir Keir Starmer still banging on about Nigel Farage?
So no, Nigel Farage isn't interested in Wales. He's interested in Nigel Farage.
Yeah, you too. Elsewhere tonight, I visited the tiny Welsh town that's just approved its 14th, yes, 14, hair salon or barber shop. Take card in here.
Yeah.
No card?
No.
You don't take card?
You don't know.
I'm not English.
You don't understand English?
Yeah,
Oh, OK.
No, you can't pay that card.
And across the pond, are we starting to see some serious clues about who could replace President Trump when he finally hangs up his boots in 2029? We'll go live to New York to hear what his son Eric said about the future of the Trump dynasty. Joining me this evening on the panel is journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards and the former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Good evening to you. A big 2 hours coming up with Dame Priti Patel waiting in the wings as we speak. She's up next. But first, let's get your news headlines with Mark White.
Good evening. The latest headlines from the GB News Centre. And Avon and Somerset police have tonight confirmed they're assessing videos after one of the acts at Glastonbury was heard chanting death to the Israeli military. Punk duo Bob Vylan, the act performing directly before Irish language rap trio Kneecap, appeared to lead crowds in chants of Free Palestine and death to the IDF.
Free, free! Free, free! But have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
Well, the BBC chose not to stream Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury after one of the band members was charged with a terror offence in May. Band member Liam Ohana is accused of displaying a flag in support of the proscribed terrorist group Hezbollah during a concert last year. In their Glastonbury set, the group led the crowd in an expletive-laden chant against Sir Keir Starmer. Well, a government spokesman has tonight condemned the comments made by the band Bob Vylan. The Culture Secretary is seeking an urgent explanation from the BBC about what due diligence they carried out ahead of the band's performance. 2 more people have been arrested on suspicion of terror offences after aircraft at an RAF base were sabotaged in a move claimed by Palestine Action. Counter-terrorism policing South East said 2 men, both from London, were taken into custody earlier today. They're accused of the commission, preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism after the attack on 2 tanker aircraft at RAF Bryce Norton just over a week ago. On Friday, a woman and 2 men, also from London, were arrested accused of the same offence. The Home Secretary has moved to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. Economists are warning tax rises are likely in the autumn following the government's major U-turn on welfare reforms. The Prime Minister announced the concessions yesterday to try and avert a rebellion by more than 120 Labour backbenchers. The changes mean only new claimants will face stricter checks to decide their eligibility. The Prime Minister said fixing the welfare system is a moral imperative.
We cannot take away the safety net that vulnerable people rely on, and we won't. But we also can't let it become a snare for those who can and want to work. And everyone agrees that our welfare system is broken, failing people every day. A generation of young people written off for good, and the costs spiralling out of control. Fixing it is a moral imperative, but we need to do it in a Labour way.
Border Force has seized £100 million worth of cocaine at a UK port. The drugs were found under containers on a ship arriving into London Gateway Port from Panama. It's one of the largest cocaine hauls since records began. Meanwhile, the National Crime Agency is investigating after a major weapons and drug seizure in Dover. 20 firearms and rounds of ammunition were recovered, along with 180 kilograms of ketamine. And that's it. You're right up to date with the latest headlines. Now, a rip-roaring few hours ahead with Ben Leo and guests.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Mark White. He's a good lad, isn't he? Good evening to you. Thank you for your company. The BBC decided they wouldn't broadcast the Glastonbury set of Irish band Kneecap today, I imagine, with the hope of probably avoiding any controversy. But if that was the plan, it failed. One of the bands that was shown live on the BBC today, just before Kneecap's appearance, decided they'd take matters into their own hands.
Free, free! Free, free! Aye, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
Well, that's a punk band called Bob Villain. Yeah, me neither. Many were expecting the live feed to be cut almost immediately by the BBC, but those scenes played out live to the nation, leaving plenty of licence fee payers, you guys at home, feeling far from impressed. And breaking moments ago, Avon and Somerset Police have said they're examining the video footage from Glastonbury today to determine if criminal offences were committed during performances by bands Bob Villain, the guys you just saw there, and Kneecap on Saturday afternoon. The force announced on social media, "We are aware of the comments made by acts on the West Holt stage at Glastonbury Festival this afternoon. Video evidence will be assessed by officers to determine whether any offences may have been committed that would require a criminal investigation." Well, I'm joined now by the Shadow Foreign Secretary, the Conservatives' Priti Patel MP. Dame Priti, good evening. Thank you for your company.
Hello,
nice
Ben.
to
Good
see
evening.
you. You tweeted an hour or so ago, Glastonbury and the BBC are inciting murder and terrorist violence against Jewish people. I'm sure many people would agree with you. What should happen to the BBC then, in light of that?
I think this is just absolutely horrific, and I'm going to say this. I think the BBC need to have a good, hard look at themselves right now. Their record over Israel and the conflicts over recent years since October the 7th has been utterly appalling. They've had record numbers of complaints about their own reporting. They failed in the past to effectively call Hamas a terrorist organisation. I was responsible for prescribing them. And what we have seen today is absolutely unacceptable for what is still considered to be our national broadcaster. And let's not forget, we are all paying for the BBC. It's a taxpayer-funded institution. And, you know, I grew up watching the BBC when they used to have concerts such as Live Aid on, and it used to make us feel incredibly proud, you know, when there was sort of the people coming together to do good things in the world. And now you see the BBC and Glastonbury promoting and inciting violence against Jewish people and effectively speaking the language of terror and hate. That is just not right. It's unacceptable. I think really some big names need to be called to account, and I would actually go as far to say some heads need to roll at the BBC.
Would you go as far as calling for the scrapping of the licence fee?
Well, I'm very pro all of that. I believe in plurality in the media, and I just don't know what we get out of the licence fee, full stop. That's a discussion for, you know, certainly my party will be having those discussions, you know, in terms of our own policy work and things of that nature. But what on earth is going on with the BBC? This is just simply not acceptable at all. And I do want to make this other point as well. You know, had this level of invective been uttered against other minority groups, you know, people would have been using the language of racism and all sorts of stuff about intolerance. Why has this just been accepted? And the police are now looking into this. You mentioned the Culture Secretary is calling for the BBC to account for themselves. The question is, the BBC, you know, knew this was coming. They must have checked out. They would have had advanced sight of the performers, because they are performers. I don't think we can call them artists. Performers that turn up at this so-called festival, performing the way in which they do. They would have known. Surely these people at the BBC would have checked out potential playlists, all this kind of stuff. There are serious questions to be asked of the BBC.
Yeah, I mean, even some very basic questions, such as why wasn't there, you know, a 5 or 10 second delay on the feed, which is quite common for situations like this. Can I ask you, though, how, Dame Priti, how have we got to this point? We've had pro-Palestine protests on the streets of London most weekends, which is fine on the basis of it, but we've seen all the placards, we've heard the chants and so on. We see very little arrests when it comes to potential offences. And in fact, Jewish people who are at those protests, they happen to be making their way through, trying to get somewhere, they're the ones that are told they're in the wrong place. So how do you think we've got to this place in Britain in 2025. How did it happen?
I'm really worried about this. Let me just say this now, because I was Home Secretary when we had Palestine Action breaking into a defence company in the UK and causing, so much damage. We're not talking thousands of pounds, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds of damage. And the police in particular were watching them, looking at them, but no further actions and prosecutions were being taken. That has got to change. They're now being prescribed. I walked past a building in Portland Square in central London today that had red paint all over it. Why on earth aren't the people that are responsible for that being made to scrub those buildings down and pay for the damage that they've actually committed? It's criminal damage for a start. But you've asked the fundamental question, how have we got to this situation? I'm really worried. I'm worried that there's been too much social acceptability of this, which I'm embarrassed to even use that language, and it's wrong to even say that, because people are not being prosecuted. Look, we believe in free speech, and when you can go out and protest, that's part of our country and our values. But when you see the types of activities that we've seen, paint, vandalism, criminal damage, language against the Jewish people. We have our Jewish community in this country are living in fear because of this level of intolerance and abuse, and that is simply not acceptable. Britain has always been a tolerant country. Look at my own background. Yes, I've grown up with degrees of racism when I was a child, but we live in a real country where communities can live side by side. We have problems now, we really do, and I just don't think this is at all acceptable.
OK, just finally, Dame Prissy, before I let you go, I appreciate your time. Some people will say, look, the Tories were in power for a good chunk of time. Nadine Dorries was meant to be, or the government at the time anyway, was meant to be pushing forward a review on Channel 4, as far as I remember, and indeed the BBC licence fee. I mean, why did none of that happen? Why didn't the Tories get tough with the BBC?
I don't know. Those were not portfolios that I was involved in. I'm very pro. You've heard me say this. I've been consistent about this in my time in politics. The BBC needs a fundamental shake-up and reform. It really does.
What would a future Tory government do with it, the BBC?
So, they've had various charter reviews, I do know that, and sort of new parameters around the BBC were put in place. I can't answer why Channel 4 never went for privatisation. But look, this is an intolerable situation now, it really is. We live in a competitive world. Look at GBNews. I think we might have spoken about this before. We need plurality in our media, and we need more companies to come forward and thrive and grow. And quite frankly, the BBC is now becoming a laggard. It can't even hold our great sporting events anymore. They've all gone elsewhere, and instead they're showing, quite frankly, performers that are yelling out racist abuse and hate that's supporting terrorist acts, and that's just not right. OK,
what would a future Tory government do about the BBC, do you think?
I can't tell you that right now. I'm not going to make up policy on your programme, Ben, but
what would you like to see happen?
We're serious. No, let me just say this, because it's very important.
Okay.
We are seriously looking at all aspects of, not just institutions, but the broadcasters, and how we've got to change fundamentally the governance and institutions and accountability in this country. That is a right and proper thing to be doing.
OK, Dame Prissy, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and company this evening. That's Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Prissy Patel, MP. Thank you very much. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, and the former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Peter, with a tie like that, I have to come to you first. Well done.
Thank you.
Patriotic man on the panel. What do you make of these scenes we've seen at Glastonbury tonight? Not very patriotic, I guess.
I just feel for the member of staff from the festival organisers who will have got off the phone and said, "We've got Bob Dylan," only for that clown to turn up.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Just this is where we've got to in 2025, when, of course, the arts and culture have always been edgy and politically challenging. In fact, I think that's part of the reason why the arts and culture exist, to challenge. But to stand up on a stage in front of thousands and thousands of people and chant for death, I think now there will be the on-duty lawyer from the CPS that covers Avon and Somerset going through the statute books, seeing what offence can we find that would suit these circumstances.
I was going to say, as a copper then, you'd expect, or a former copper, you'd expect somebody to be nicked tonight.
Well, I would expect the CPS to be very carefully looking at the footage. Of course, it's a different circumstances from a demonstration, for example, because that set has finished now.
Yeah.
And that pathetic performer is probably on their way home to whatever hovel it is that they live in. So there's not an instant breach of the peace. There's not public order offences being committed in the here and now. So it would have to be a piece of legislation that would fit the circumstances retrospectively.
OK, Linda Jubilee, do you have sympathy for the BBC here, or is it yet another Beeb gaffe?
I don't have sympathy for the BBC, and in general terms, I think the licence fee should go, and this is one more reason why that should happen. But I do think here that the big irony here is that October the 7th, and Paul and I were talking about this before we came on air, is that some of those heinous crimes were committed at a music festival where people attending the music festival were actually running towards the terrorists, the Hamas terrorists, to give them a hug, and were then mown down in the most merciless fashion. Now, the people attending this concert, listening to these chants, need a short, sharp lesson in geopolitics, and they need to understand what is going on here. Because I fear that what happens is the more you see of this kind of behaviour, we can call it out, but I have a horrible fear that it kind of normalises it, that you kind of get used to it. The way we got used to protests every Saturday on the streets of London, sooner or later we get used to these chants all the time.
Yeah, look, I'm, of course, all for free speech. I've got no problem people protesting Israel for whatever they think. But when you... I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was at Glastonbury yesterday, and he said to the crowd, look at the wall that surrounds this festival. There's a message on it saying, build bridges, not walls. I mean, first of all, losing the irony that it was scrawled on a wall in the first place. But, Paul, these guys, the left in particular, they preach love and tolerance. In actual fact, they are the most hateful group of people I think I've ever come across.
Well, that is no part of any left that I would recognise.
Well, they are. They're militant leftists. Bob Dylan, whatever the hell his name is.
Beyond the pale. I've been fuming all afternoon since the guy did his so-called act. But I'm also fuming about the idiots in the crowd who then responded and chanted the same death chants back. And I wonder if the police can use face recognition on the crowd and actually go through the tapes and see who was chanting it. It's not just the artist who should be banged up for this. It should be the people in the crowd waving the flags and making the chants.
Right.
So your point on the BBC, I mean, Tim Davie has had a difficult conversation with a cabinet minister this evening already, and the government's going to move swiftly on this. And I've just had contact with Yvette Cooper's office as well, and they're moving fast on this. So action will be taken at that level of the BBC. Tim Davie is a perfectly nice man at a personal level, but, I mean, as the man in charge of the BBC, he has got to take action on this and work out what on earth went wrong. And it has been a massive mistake. Peter's quite right. Normally these programmes have got some sort of time delay or something that can cut off before it is broadcast to millions, and yet that death chant was broadcast to the nation, and that's totally wrong.
I'm not sure about this, and I don't know whether Peter could clear this up, but you could possibly charge the singer, Bob Dylan, or members of the audience with malicious... malicious communication. I don't know whether that works in this instance, but it is...
It's inciting violence, isn't it, Peter?
Inciting violence, absolutely bang to rights.
Which is why the CPS will be very hurriedly going through the statute book, thinking which piece of legislation fits these circumstances, because obviously they won't want to get it wrong, because it's going to be so high profile.
Yeah. OK, we have gone to the BBC on Ben Leo's tonight. We've not heard anything back yet. I suspect they're, trying to formulate a response or something. But, yeah, as soon as we get that response, if we do get it tonight, I will share it with you at home. And isn't it funny, just by the way, before we move on, isn't it funny, I'll say again, because she's the most prime example, poor Lucy Connolly, mother of one, whose 13-year-old child is still at home without her mum, her husband, who she was a carer for, banged up for 2.5 years for a tweet, which she deleted 4 hours later, and yet we have people called, or bands at least, called Bob Dylan, whatever the hell they're called, inane name, doing that kind of thing, and yet we're still twiddling our thumbs, wondering what we can charge them with. So, interesting point to digest. Right, let's move on. Time now for the Great British Giveaway. Bit of a gear change. Your chance to win £54,321, our biggest cash prize today. It's tax-free, of course, and it could be yours. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life. Somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, good luck to you on that. We have an official response from the government moments ago on the Glastonbury situation. I'll bring that to you in just a second when we continue momentarily the coverage of that pretty despicable story. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
On this day, 4 years ago, GB News was born, launching our first live broadcast on June 13th, 2021. Let's take a look back at some of our earlier memories.
If you've just switched on, a very warm welcome to you. I am Alastair Stewart, and until 3 p.m. this afternoon, I'll be keeping you company, along with friends and, I hope, friendly guests. I hope you'd agree that we've had a strong hour of debate and discussion so far, but there's lots more still to come. GB News is all about you, our viewers. Any burning questions or stories that you think we need to cover, no matter how big or small, we really do want to hear from you.
Well, we can now speak with former GB News presenter Alastair Stewart. Alastair, thank you so much for joining me. Thinking back to 4 years ago, what did you think the channel's prospects were? Did you think it would be a success?
I did. Thank you so much for having me on, and a very happy birthday to you, one of the many brilliant faces, as we call it in the trade, presenting programmes, but also to the absolutely wonderful team of technicians that you've got behind you, making sure that this all gets on air very smoothly. And we've not only hung on in there, but we've now got GB News Radio as well. Online, we're huge. We get quite good numbers on viewing, very, very good numbers on listening, well ahead some of the other competitors. I do remember when Murdoch launched Talk, there were quite a few people in the newsroom who were nervous, not because they were so good, but because Murdoch had so much more money than we did. We've seen them off. They're virtually dead in the water now, and we are thriving, celebrating 4 years of triumphal and brilliant journalism.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo's Tonight. Just a quick new line on the BBC Glastonbury situation. A government spokesperson has said in the last couple of minutes in a statement, We strongly condemn the threatening comments made by Bob Vylan at Glastonbury. The Culture Secretary has spoken to the BBC Director General to seek an urgent explanation about what due diligence it carried out ahead of the Bob Vylan performance and welcomes the decision not to rebroadcast it on BBC iPlayer. Well, I'm joined now by broadcaster David Oldroyd-Boyce and the former BBC presenter and DJ Alex Dyke. Good evening, chaps. Thank you for your company. David, I'll start with you. Your thoughts, please, on the situation today with Glastonbury, the BBC. Is it time to abolish the licence fee?
It is, but not for this reason. I'm very glad it was broadcast, because everybody who has seen that knows two things now. One, that Bob Vylan, the band, are completely contemptible, and the other, that all of the superannuated trustafarians paying the sharp end of £400 to go to Glastonbury, who do not condemn this and say that this is absolutely despicable sentiments to echo, should themselves be embarrassed. I would ask anyone, if they were at Glastonbury, and should they say yes, and should they say that they don't have a problem with this, that that's someone you don't need to continue a friendship with.
Yeah, interesting. And as Paul Richards said in the last segment, he was calling, perhaps, I don't know if you'd go as far as this, David, for facial recognition of the crowd who were chanting what Bob Vylan, or whatever the hell he's called, was singing.
Well, if that is the standard applied to other political protests, then that should clearly be the standard applied here. One of the problems, it seems to me, at the moment with laws on free speech and their application is that they are not applied equally and without fear or favour. That there are certain types of political demonstration and speech which seem to be perfectly admissible. Now, I do think that there is an interesting question here for those of us who are advocates of free speech, which I am very strongly, of whether we wish to be more like the American system where you have the Brandenburg test, which means essentially that an incitement, to be classed as an incitement, must have a real threat of being carried out. I think it's probably unlikely that a lot of ageing hippies are going to go across to the West Bank or to Tel Aviv and start having a go at the IDF, and I'd be very amused to see the result if they did. So this wouldn't, in fact, I think, fall under the proper threshold for incitement. But it is, nonetheless, crass, and particularly given that the October 7th attacks began at a music festival, anyone associated with it really ought to be deeply embarrassed.
Well, I'll say again, Alex, I'll come to you. I'll say again, I just said a moment ago, Lucy Connolly, poor woman, was banged up for incitement because she tweeted something which was, I'd argue, wasn't even direct incitement. She said, "For all I care." Anyway, are you proud still to work for the BBC? You're a former presenter and DJ. Alex, what's your thoughts on your old employer?
Well, I'm absolutely outraged. I don't think I've ever really been outraged in my life before by anything the media have ever done. I've been slightly annoyed by things, but I mean, the hate at Glastonbury. I mean, the music festivals are meant to be peace-loving. We know that there's politics in Glastonbury because Jeremy Corbyn was there on stage in 2017. And
he was there yesterday as well.
Yeah, and Michael Eavis stood for the Labour Party as a candidate in 1997. But getting back to the BBC, where was the delay system? Why was this broadcast? Why did somebody not pull the plug? Either the broadcaster or someone on the soundboard at Glastonbury. I mean, I think this is awful. I think now that band, trouble is, guys, we are giving them the oxygen of publicity now by talking about them, aren't we? But their record company need to drop them. The BBC need to ban them from everything they do on Radio 1 and Radio 1 Extra. For old Bob Vile, or whatever his name is, this kid from Ipswich, I mean, what does he really know about this situation? I bet his parents are proud of him tonight. And the hatred in the crowd. I'll tell you what I do think, Ben, and I mean this, the BBC now, the punishment to Bob Vylan, or whatever his name is the BBC should pull the plug on it now. By midnight, they should just say, that's it. This idiot has ruined it for everyone. We're not putting it on the iPlayer. You're not going to see it because someone needs to set an example, because where's this going to end?
OK, if you've just tuned in, viewers at home, to Benleo Tonight, we're discussing the situation at Glastonbury today where a artist or a band called Bob Vylan, me neither, was singing this to the crowd. Take a look.
Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
There we go. Bunch of morons in the crowd, by the way. Alex, just tell us, as a BBC former DJ, when you're in the studio, you're doing a show, Alex, you're doing a BBC studio, it's going out to the nation. What is the technical situation with regards to delays? Are streams like this always live with no delay? Would you expect a delay on Glastonbury performances? Just tell us how it works.
Well, I would expect a delay on the Glastonbury performance. I don't know, because I've not worked at that level in TV. When you work on commercial radio, there's a 15-second delay. So if anyone says anything, you can press the dump button. So if you're taking a live caller, you can press what they call the dump button, and you've got time to get rid of them and go to a commercial break or whatever. At the BBC, what we always did was the producer would say, right, you want to go through to Alex? We'll phone you back. So the BBC had the person's number. So if the BBC did broadcast something that was offensive, at least you had their number and you could go back to them. The problem for the BBC is it's no point fining the BBC, because if you fine the BBC, it's people like you and me, Ben, who pay the fine. And Ofcom won't throw the book at the BBC because the BBC have to go through their own diligence and internal complaints process before Ofcom will get involved in this. So once again, I think the BBC will walk away from this, but I don't think they should. I think this is the worst thing I think I've ever seen. On the BBC.
For viewers who don't know, the BBC mark their own homework, whereas people will complain en masse, a bunch of militant leftists, about something that may have happened on GB News, and they'll do it in a campaigning fashion. The BBC don't go to Ofcom. They're not referred to Ofcom initially. They mark their own homework, and if it's deemed serious enough, then it will go to Ofcom. David, last word to you. I asked Dame Prissy Patel this. How did we get to this point in Britain in 2025?
I think we got to this point because there are a great many people out there who are completely and utterly ignorant of the situation in the Middle East and, through some warped idea, believe that they're backing the underdog and backing Palestine, which is essentially backing Hamas, Hezbollah and eventually Iran. These people are stupid. There is no point glossing over this. They are incredibly stupid. And the comments that they make in public, such as death to the IDF, such as from the river to the sea, are, as I said at the beginning of this segment, simply a marker to all of us that these are not people that you need to take in any way seriously or have in your life. OK, yeah, and by the way, just to reconfirm and sort of clarify again, I'm not against protest of Israel. If people have genuine concerns about Israel or the way they're behaving or whatever, fine, but don't pretend to be holier-than-thou militant leftists who preach tolerance and love and build bridges, not walls, and then at the same time chant death, death to, you know, people you don't agree with. Doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. Broadcaster David Oldroyd Bolt and former BBC presenter and DJ Alex Dyke, thank you very much for your company. There is a statement from the BBC coming in this second. Let me get it up on my laptop. They have said, a spokesperson said, some of the comments made during Bob Vylan's set were deeply offensive. During this live stream on iPlayer, which reflected what was happening on stage, a warning was issued on screen about the very strong and discriminatory language. We have no plans to make the performance available on demand. Let me just read that to you again. A statement from the BBC in the last 10 seconds. Some of the comments made during Bob Vylan's set were deeply offensive. During the stream on live on iPlayer, which reflected what was happening on stage, a warning was issued on screen about the very strong and discriminatory language. We have no plans to make the performance available on demand. David, very quickly, your response to that. Does that cut it? Well, it's about as far as the BBC needs to go. They're not going to rebroadcast it. It was offensive. Offensive speech is part of free speech, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be condemned when, in this instance, it's quite clearly ridiculous.
Alex, quick one.
I think someone's head should roll at the BBC for this. The BBC are in a difficult position because they won't call Hamas terrorists. They call them militants. So already people in Britain are not on the side of the BBC and want to see someone's head roll for this.
OK, all right. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your company, and we'll catch up soon. Right, coming up on Ben Leo tonight, you think of opera singers and you think maybe of people with slightly fuller figures, I guess, maybe to really emphasise the power of their voice. But there's a new theme trending now where opera singers are facing pressure, apparently, to take fat jabs such as Ozempic. And apparently that's exactly what's happening. I'm joined next by one of those opera singers, and I think she's going to treat us to a live performance as well. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. If you're heading further afield for a holiday over the next few days, windy in Greece, but widespread sunshine for much of the Mediterranean, and I suspect increasingly hot in many places. We've got a keen breeze for Madeira and the Canaries, nothing unusual for the time of year. The heat continues to build through Spain, Portugal, France and Italy. Temperatures high 30s and in some places low or even mid 40s. Very breezy through Greece, but staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So the heat is going to be building over the next couple of days across the southeast of the UK, but it's not going to be warm for all of us. There is still some cloud and rain around, all thanks to this weather front across the northern half of the country. But it's that area of high pressure to the south of the weather front. This is where we're going to see that heat starting to build. Where we do say that weather front, we have got a bit of cloud around parts of northern England, seeing some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle across any high ground this afternoon. Also parts of Wales, perhaps seeing the odd spot of rain in places. But to the north and to the south of that front is where we're going to see the best of the sunshine. Perhaps one or two showers across the north of Scotland, but it's the southeast where we see the peak of those temperatures today. 29, 30, perhaps even 31 degrees, so feeling really quite warm in that sunshine. As we then head into this evening, perhaps a bit of a cloudy end to the day across parts of southwest England and Wales, maybe the odd spot of rain over the hills. Generally dry with clear spells further east. Northern parts of England continue to see that weather front as we head into this evening. But for Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, a dry end to the day on Saturday. Still one or two isolated showers across the very far north of Scotland. Perhaps some of these quite blustery and heavy in places. But generally staying quite mild as we head through this evening period. That weather front continues across central areas, generally easing a little as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning, although still the odd spot of rain just in places across the very far west. But elsewhere, plenty of clear spells on offer. Still one or two isolated showers just feeding into the very far north of Scotland, but it is going to be a really mild night across the country. In the south, perhaps the mid, maybe even high teens as a minimum. A little bit fresher further north, but still likely staying in the double figures. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday for much of the country. Still some patchy rain and drizzle feeding in across parts of Wales, into parts of Northern Ireland too. Some outbreaks of rain across the very far northwest of Scotland. But for much of the country, a dry day, plenty of sunshine on offer again. But again, feeling very, very warm across the southeast. 30 or 31 degrees.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, opera singers are speaking out, claiming they're being pressured to use weight loss medications such as Ozempic and Mounjaro. So, renowned mezzo-soprano Jamie Barton revealed in an interview with The Times today that the pressure is very real, and one of her colleagues even lost their job because they weren't, quote, aesthetically pleasing. Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by opera singer Friederike Krum. Welcome along, Friederike. Thank you for your company.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about this. I had the stereotypical view in my mind that opera singers were slightly on the larger side, maybe, to kind of emphasise their voice. I mean, is that a stereotype? And what's going on with this Ozempic, Mounjaro thing?
I don't think you have to have a certain body size to be a good opera singer.
That doesn't help project your voice or anything?
No, you don't necessarily sing with what's on top. It's sort of more the body frame rather than what the skin and everything that's on top.
Got it.
But I think, first of all, nobody should tell anybody other than a doctor whether you should lose weight and whether you should take Ozempic or any such medication. I think it's a personal choice otherwise, and you shouldn't do it for any job, for any partner, family. Nobody has to tell you how you want to look like.
Yeah,
and
well
I
said.
admire people who feel comfortable in their skin if they're a little bit on the curvy side. You know, I wish I had that confidence. I'm not there yet. But it certainly shouldn't matter that you get a position in your job. But there are jobs, obviously, like jockeys or ballerinas or race car driver. There are restricted by certain weights.
Of course, yeah.
But when it comes to opera, it is sort of more that it is a visual and it is an audio experience. So people, you know, unlike at home, you just listen to a CD or download. You see it's acting, it's a play, it's an entertainment. So it's more the artistic directors who then have a certain vision about how they want to put this opera on stage.
Right.
But you have that as well when you go to movies in Hollywood or wherever, where people cast because they want a certain actress or actor to look a certain way.
So what do you think of Jamie Barton's comments in The Times? She was saying, you know, there's an increased pressure for opera singers to not just sound great and perform very well, but also look aesthetically pleasing. Have you noticed that yourself?
I've not had anybody dare say that to me.
What would you do if they did?
Well, they wouldn't be here to tell the tale.
Peter Blexley, watch your mouth.
I couldn't possibly incite violence or encourage it, but it's never bothered me in my opera career, having a few pounds, that's for sure.
And tell us, where are you performing at the moment?
I do a lot of freelance at the moment. I'm flying to Germany next week to do a classical festival. I've done the Royal Albert Hall, so I do a lot of freelance. But again, it doesn't matter where you sing. It really hasn't got anything to do with how you look. It's the voice that should predominantly matter in opera. But yes, it is. If artistic directors have a certain idea how they want to cast, that's fair. And they have the right to do so, as much as any singer has the right to look the way they want. If that then isn't a match, I think that's for everybody to live with. I mean, everybody makes their own decisions.
So has anybody, any artistic director, casting director, I'm not sure if you do castings, whatever, has anybody ever said to you, you can have this job, but can you know, just slightly change this or maybe lose a bit of weight or put a bit of weight on, whatever? Has anyone ever said anything like that to you?
No, weight was never an issue with me. Sometimes they may want, you know, a more outgoing or less outgoing or a different look. You know, could you please have, you know, long hair? But then that's it's a costume question.
Yeah.
No, nobody's ever addressed the topic of. But I have discussed it with opera singers who struggle with that and feel pressured, and it's not a fair thing to do.
Do you know
Maria Callas has been, you know, Maria Callas, she has lost 80 pounds.
I know, yeah,
that is a lot, and it has affected her voice in her later career. She looked stunning, but it's not about how you look when you're on stage. At least not only. At least not when you do a concert. In opera, it's a little bit of both, but who says you can't be a seductive, you know, emotional, enchanting Carmen if you are a bit bigger?
Yeah, I agree. Horses and horses.
I mean, who says that?
Absolutely, 100%. Right, you know what I'm going to ask you now? I'm going to be very cheeky and ask if you can treat us to a little a cappella or something for your beautiful voice. Would you mind?
I don't know.
Just to see us out to the break.
I don't know how much voice I have left after chanting for the SUFFA volunteers this morning with the 13 British races.
Oh, we appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you, Friederike.
Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's rich and your ma's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry.
Woo! Yes, Friederike. No, amazing.
Size 10 or size 14.
Beautiful.
So doesn't really matter.
So much. Friederike Krum, thank you very much for your company. Really appreciate that. Back in just a tick on Ben Leo Tonight.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, It happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, this week I went down to Porth in South Wales, which is home to 13 barbershops/salons. And the council there have just approved a licence for a 14th. And bearing in mind, Porth, which is a tiny town, very sweet, it's got a population of just under 6,000. So I went down there, to find out what's going on. Take a look. I'm here in the tiny Welsh town of Porth, which has hit the headlines recently because it's just given approval to open its 14th barbershop/salon. It's a community of just under 6,000 people. Corner Cuts, Ken's Barbershop, Yusuf's Jazz Hair Design, Porth Barber, Hair by Janine, Hair and Beauty Shop, House of Hanson, The Salon Limited, Lazaro's, Chic Hair Salon. So there was 13, and they've just been given permission to open 14th, which is a Turkish barbershop.
And they're all busy.
Yeah, well. Hey mate, sorry to bother you. Ben from GB News. Is there too many barbershops? What do you think?
It do, yeah. Too many barbershop in Hannah, yeah.
Do you want the others to close down?
Which one?
All of them. Just have you here, close the rest down?
Yeah, why not, yeah? We're going to close down.
And as we walk down towards the high street now, we've got a vape planned, variety of vapes, vape accessories, Darth Vapor, may the vapor be with you, at the Premier newsagent. Also a big sign for vapes and more, so if you're in Porth, you're never going to be short of a vape. And this is the place here, the amusements, where they're turning it into another Turkish barbershop. You can see they're carrying out the refurb at the moment, so all the old games and arcade machines. Hey mate.
Sir, who said that? Who said it's going to be 14?
Oh, I thought it had been approved.
No.
No? What's going on with it? Sorry? Where have you gone? Oh, okay, but it's not going to be a barbershop?
No, I'm not going to say that. Sorry, mate. Nothing to do.
Well, it's just been approved by the council.
Yeah, so what?
Right, well, that guy says it's not going to be a barber shop. He won't tell me why or how he knows, but it has just been approved. I mean, that is the fact of the matter. Anyway, we keep going. Let's go. Oh, there's another vape shop here. Vapor Yum. There's another one. Pixie Cuts, another barber shop. Oh, it's for dogs. This one's for dogs. No humans. What? Not for humans, though. For dogs, that's all right. At least we've got one barbershop for dogs. So we've got the Salon Limited over there. This one's Lazaro's. Hey, mate, how are you?
How you doing? You all right? Yeah.
Do you run this shop?
No, he's my friend.
Your friends?
Yeah.
We're doing a little piece on the number of barbers and salons.
Yeah,
he's laughing in there. There's lots surrounding Porth, isn't there? Why is there so many?
Yeah, but I'm not sure about this some barber. They have a 2-3 barbers around here, but actually this guy is just on a holiday now. Yeah.
Well, the owner?
Yeah, it's a holiday, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know him.
Four Turkish barbershops is okay?
Yeah, I think four for free.
That's enough?
Man, yes,
because there's not even 6,000 people in.
No. Yeah, but his other one is different one.
Do you take card in here?
Yeah.
No card?
No. Which one?
If I need my haircut now, can I pay by card?
Yeah, of course you can. Every barber, some barber shops, they have a card as well if you do it.
You take card in here?
Yeah.
You don't take card?
You don't know.
I'm not speaking English.
You don't understand English?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
No, you can't pay the card. Yeah, you can pay the card.
You do take card?
Yeah, I do. I do my card. I pay the card as well.
Where's the card machine? I can't see it.
It's a card machine. He's ordered new one. His older is gone. He ordered new one.
So he's ordered a new one?
Yeah, he ordered because it's the other one is.
Or is it broken? Is it?
Yeah, it's a change.
For the time being, cash only?
Yeah, I do them. No, that's cash.
Yeah.
You can both.
Both. So if the card machine's broken, how do I pay now?
If you can't pay, you can transfer it.
Bank transfer?
Yeah, the bank transfer. They can accept as well.
All right.
Because when I was here.
Yeah.
You got,
but so this isn't your business?
No, it's not my business.
Ah, okay. All right.
I was just live here.
All right. Well, maybe I'll come back when the card machine works.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
You can see the card machine, man.
Good
Don't
man.
worry.
Thank you, my friend. And it's quite funny, that last guy, because he said he's not... One minute he said he's not the owner, then somebody else came out afterwards and said, oh, I'm the owner, he's on holiday. Then he said they take card, then they don't take card. All a bit strange. I mean, I'm not casting aspersions, but yeah, there we go. Linda Jubilee, 14 barbershops/salons in a tiny little town. A bit bizarre, isn't it?
It's absolutely incredible. That's where I trained as a journalist, down on the Western Mail in Cardiff, and I know Porth quite well. And when I was down there, nothing like that existed. But I must say there is a huge trend towards these Turkish barbers. I live in a little market town now, kind of market town, Marlow, on the Thames, and we've only got a short high street. It's very, just like 500 yards long, and we've got 4 Turkish barbers in the town.
4? Yeah, well, they've got 4 as well, Peter. Why does a little town need 4 Turkish barbershops?
Because the illegal drugs industry is the 4th biggest industry in the world, and it raises billions upon billions upon billions of pounds, dollars, yen, euros every week, and that money has to be laundered somewhere.
Yeah, I have to say, of course, no suggestion any of those guys in that clip there were dealing with any illicit substances or whatever. I think they're just legitimate, genuine barbershops, Paul Richards.
Well, some of them are probably and some of them are not. But the real crime for me is the council licensing all these places and the death of the high street. And the councillors in every town have to be a little bit more imaginative about how we put a different mix of shops, amenities for local people, places for kids to play into these town centres, because it's not going to be like it was. But we're going to have to reimagine them. Otherwise, they're going to die like that one and just be full of vapes, coffee, charity and barbers.
It has been proven beyond dispute by National Crime Agency investigations of recent times that some of these barbershops, in inverted commas, launder cash and employ illegals.
And the nail bars too, in lots of these places.
Yep.
So we've got to look at all of that. But mind you, a nice Turkish barber for your shave, very nice.
Paul's got the best point. You've got to have a mix of shops. You've got to have the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
Yeah. Okie doke. There we go. Don't forget you can stay with us all day, not just on TV, but on radio and on your smart speaker. To listen to us on your smart speaker, say, play GB News on tuning. Coming up, a big story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph, back in just a tick.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a very warm day for many of us today, and that heat continues to build over the next couple of days, particularly across the southeast, all thanks to an area of high pressure that's building from the south of the UK, pushing its way north and eastwards over the next couple of days. We do still have this weather front across northern areas, though. That will continue to bring some cloud and rain as we head through the rest of Saturday evening, mainly across northwestern parts of England, perhaps into northern parts of Wales, southwest England too. But elsewhere, generally a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells into the early hours of Sunday morning, and a very mild night to come too. Temperatures in the south not dropping below the high teens for many places. A little fresher further north, but still staying well into the double figures for most places. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday, perhaps still quite a cloudy start across parts of Wales, southwest England. We could continue to see some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle. Elsewhere in England, though, generally a dry and bright start to the morning, and a similar picture too across parts of Northern Ireland. Scotland generally seeing some early sunshine as well, plenty of clear and blue skies through the morning. One or two isolated showers across the very far northeast, but elsewhere staying dry to start on Sunday. That cloud does continue across parts of Wales, southwest England as we head through the afternoon. Maybe one or two isolated showers just feeding into Northern Ireland, and some longer spells of rain into northwest Scotland too. But elsewhere, generally staying dry, plenty of sunshine on offer as we head through Sunday afternoon. And again, feeling really warm across the southeast, highs of 29, 30, potentially 31 degrees, and even across parts of Scotland into the low 20s. A very mild start to the day on Monday, potentially a little warmer start on Monday compared to Sunday. The northwest does continue to see some outbreaks of potentially quite heavy rain feeding in from the northwest, but for much of England and Wales, a dry and bright afternoon to come. And the temperatures likely peaking on Monday or Tuesday, around 34, potentially 35 degrees, but then feeling fresher by the middle of the week.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christys here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight,
Nigel Farage. Unlike Nigel Farage, which Nigel Farage have done the same, you have to ask about Nigel Farage. I'm from Farage. And unlike Nigel Farage stands for none of this.
that was the Prime Minister just weeks ago. His poll numbers are still in the gutter. So why is Sir Keir Starmer still banging on about Nigel Farage? And on tomorrow's front page of the Sunday Express, there it is. A bombshell poll reveals that most Brits don't know what the Prime Minister stands for. Do you? Even the Observer newspaper has had enough. On tomorrow's front page, it lists Sir Keir Starmer's catalogue of regrets, including Sue Gray, the Island of Strangers comment, and letting down those who voted for him. And
I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant.
We'll be going stateside, where I'm joined by US journalist Nelson Aspin to go over the biggest stories from the States this week.
He's now towards Leicester Square. It's high risk through pedestrians towards...
Phone thefts, mobile phone thefts in the capital have soared to record levels. I'll reveal just how many mobiles are being snatched off London streets every single day. Joining me on the panel this evening is journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards and the former Scotland Yard police detective Peter Bleksley. And what do you reckon happened when a journalist tried to embarrass the US Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth?
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
But first, let's get your news headlines with a man whose phone I would never dare steal, Mark White.
Good evening. The latest headlines from the GB News Centre. Avon and Somerset police have tonight confirmed that they're assessing videos after one of the acts at Glastonbury was heard chanting death to the Israeli military. Punk duo Bob Vylan, the act performing directly before Irish language rap trio Kneecap, appeared to lead crowds in chants of Free Palestine and death to the IDF.
Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
The BBC chose not to stream Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury after one of the band members was charged with a terror offence in May. In their Glastonbury set, the group led the crowd in an expletive-laden chant against Sir Keir Starmer. Well, a government spokesman has tonight condemned the comments made by the band Bob Vylan. The Culture Secretary is seeking an urgent explanation from the BBC about what due diligence they carried out ahead of the band's performance. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel told Ben Leo earlier that the BBC had serious questions to answer.
I think this is just absolutely horrific, and I'm going to say this. I think the BBC need to have a good, hard look at themselves right now. Their record over Israel and the conflicts over recent years since October the 7th has been utterly appalling.
Two people have been arrested on suspicion of terror offences after aircraft at an RAF base were sabotaged in a move claimed by Palestine Action. Counter-terrorism policing South East said two men, both from London, were taken into custody earlier today. They're accused of the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism after the attack on two tanker aircraft at RAF Bryce Norton just over a week ago. On Friday, a woman and two men, also from London, were arrested, accused of the same offence. The Home Secretary has moved to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. Some breaking news tonight, and a 7-year-old girl has died and another is in a critical condition after a tree fell over in a park in Essex. All three emergency services were called to Chalkwell Park in Southend late this afternoon to reports of a number of casualties. A further 3 children were transported to hospital with minor injuries. Economists are warning tax rises are likely in the autumn following the government's major U-turn on welfare reforms. The Prime Minister announced the concessions yesterday to try and avert a rebellion by more than 120 Labour backbenchers. The changes mean only new claimants will face stricter checks to decide their eligibility. The Prime Minister said fixing the welfare system was a moral imperative. And finally, amber heat health alerts are now in force across much of England as the country faces its second heat wave of the summer. Temperatures are soaring this weekend and set to peak on Monday, with highs of up to 35 Celsius possible in London and Cambridgeshire. OK, you're right up to date with the latest headlines. Now someone who's always turning up the temperature, Ben Leo.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good evening to you. It's all been a bit muggy in today's heat, hasn't it, across Britain? And I reckon the Prime Minister is feeling it.
There are those who are firmly stuck in the past. Take Farage. When you ask him about Clapton, he thinks it's running in the 210 at Ascot. A wolf in Wall Street clothing. Because Reform claimed to be the party of patriotism while sucking up to Putin and abusing our armed forces online. They say they're the party of workers, while they vote against workers' rights. Nigel Farage isn't interested in Wales. He's interested in Nigel Farage.
Well, that was Sir Keir Starmer speaking today at the Welsh Labour conference, and it's probably no surprise to see Reform has the Prime Minister rattled once again, because in Wales, polls suggest Labour, which has led every Welsh government since devolution, will come in third place behind Reform as the biggest party. But this obsession with Reform and Nigel Farage isn't just about Wales, is it? This was Nigel Farage living rent-free in the Prime Minister's head in May.
Nigel Farage. Unlike Nigel Farage, which Nigel Farage have done the same, you have to ask about Nigel Farage. I'm from Farage. And unlike Nigel Farage stands for none of this.
That was Keir Starmer mentioning Nigel Farage 16 times during that one speech, and later that month, he was at it again.
Against it, Russia, China, Iran. And surprisingly, the leader of the opposition and Nigel Farage are in that column alongside Russia, China and Iran, rather than the column that has the UK and its allies in it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you just get the feeling the Prime Minister should be focusing more maybe on improving the country and indeed saving his own job, rather than the party he mocks this year for being able to fit in the back of a taxi. As James Frayne writes in the Telegraph today, Sir Keir Starmer's personal polling ratings are so awful that some Labour backbenchers are beginning to question whether he can survive until the next election. His first year in office, which he'll mark next week with a major climb down on welfare reform, has been catastrophic. Of the Prime Ministers since Thatcher, only Gordon Brown had a worse net approval rating at the same stage in his premiership. Well, let's get the thoughts now of my panel. Journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards and the former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Welcome back, panel. Paul Richards. Why is the Prime Minister so obsessed with Nigel Farage, especially, as mentioned, when his own approval ratings are so bad?
Well, Nigel Farage has established himself as somebody who wants to be the Prime Minister of our country, and if you believe the polls, if there was an election tomorrow, he would be the Prime Minister, right? So it is right for Keir Starmer to scrutinise him, to question him, to try and shine a light on the policies such as they are, to look at the candidates they have, the people who are elected as councillors and so on, and not let them get away with it and just being a sort of side show.
I thought they only had 5 MPs.
They are now a serious potentially governing party. They need to come under that spotlight. So that's what he's doing. And by the way, I've read the whole speech he gave in London this week, today. It mentions industrial strategy, it mentions the steel workers, they're launching the 10-year plan for the NHS next week. There's a lot of stuff going on beyond that as well.
Just quickly, so if reform should be taken seriously and scrutinised and so on, why does the Prime Minister make jokes at the dispatch box about the number of MPs they have?
Well, because at Prime Minister's questions, you have to make jokes, don't you? That is part of that's what's the parliamentary system, isn't it?
Linda?
Well, you know as well as I do, Paul, that the first rule of communications when you've got a problem like this is you don't keep repeating the name. I watched that speech live this morning, and you are right. It was one sentence in the middle of the speech, but as soon as the words were out of his mouth, I thought, why doesn't he have enough self-discipline not to mention Nigel Farage's name?
Is he rattled, Linda?
It's not difficult.
Is the Prime Minister rattled?
Oh, he must be to have lost control that way. I mean, that is a loss of control.
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, you're right, of course. You shouldn't big up your opponents and use their name, but they've obviously decided inside Downing Street that you can't ignore it. You can't just pretend it's not happening.
But that's the problem. You can.
And so the strategy is to try and expose it and to shine light on it. Now, we'll see whether it's successful
or not.
But,
do you know why it won't work? I'll tell you why it won't work. Because in this Ipsos poll, which is in the Daily Express, it turns out that 2 out of 3 Britons do not know what Sir Keir Starmer stands for. And the reason they don't know what Sir Keir Starmer stands for is because I don't believe he knows what he stands for. And that is the first rule of strategic communications. He has to have a purpose, he has to have a vision, he has to feed it into his strategic narrative, and it's not happening.
OK. Cue Peter Bleksley.
Do you remember when he was appointed Prime Minister and he said, we will be a government of service.
Yes.
And we'll be there for you, and all that other drivel that he came out with. Well, here we are, a year later, and what a catastrophic year it has been for Starmer, his acolytes, those who surround him, and this failing cabinet. Let's take a butcher's, if we may, at The Observer, the front page of The Observer, where it says, regrets, I have a few. Well, that's a line, ironically, from that wonderful song, My Way. And yet we know that Starmer doesn't do it my way. His Island of Strangers speech, written by someone else, hadn't read it beforehand. It's just a mouthpiece. The man is a disaster.
But that is my point, because the problem is this won't be the last U-turn. And the reason it won't be the last U-turn is because no one has sorted the underlying core narrative of what this government is for. So it's like trying to build a house without any foundations. You just give it one push and the whole building topples over.
Can I ask you, you're a communications expert, you've worked with all sorts of international broadcasters and, media training and whatever. If Number 10 called you tonight and said, Linda, we've seen your contributions on Ben Leo tonight, we're very impressed, we think you're a wise sage, would you go and work for Number 10 and
Well,
handle
I couldn't, because of my own political beliefs, would rule that out, and they wouldn't want me anywhere near them, I'm sure. But, I mean, if you could extract that out of the equation, I think it's a very, very interesting proposition, because I don't think all is lost. But I do think that no one is grasping the nettle here.
OK.
And that's not just Keir Starmer, that's his comms department.
Paul Richards, this front page tomorrow of The Observer newspaper, of course, is a left-leaning publication. You would have thought that they would be supporting this Labour government where they can. However, for those listening on radio, let me just read you the headline. So it's The Observer tomorrow. Regrets, I have a few. Island of Strangers wasn't right. I deeply regret using it. We forgot that people wanted something to look forward to. Sue Gray wasn't the right person for the job. And after the firebombing of his home, he said, I wasn't in the best state. I mean, the fact the Observer is... This is an interview in the Observer tomorrow, by the way, but the fact they're running this in this fashion is telling, is it not?
Well, it's a great scoop by Tom Baldwin, who is the Prime Minister's biographer, as we know, and a very well-established journalist. And he's got this incredible one-year-on interview where he's gone through all of these different things. And I think it shows a kind of sign of great humility and honesty for the Prime Minister to say some of this stuff out loud. He isn't just parroting a line and saying everything's fantastic. He is admitting his own failings, the failings of the government, and some of the things that have gone wrong that we all know about.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is.
Isn't it refreshingly honest, Pete?
There's a deeply, deeply worrying line here, OK? So a house that he used to live in, but he rented out to another family where he lives, so he now lives in 10 Downing Street or Chequers, surrounded 24 hours a day by the best protection services in the world, and he will do for the rest of his life. And he admits, after the front door of the house he used to live in gets set on fire, he says, I wasn't in the best state. What about if we get into a war situation?
Yeah.
What if something really serious happens and he gets fretful over a front door getting set fire to? The man is not fit to hold the office of Prime Minister if that's how flaky he is.
Hang on, that's not flaky. He was worried about the safety of a family member in the event of a firebombing. I think that's entirely reasonable.
I was not in the best state. There's people to deal with that, pal. Get on with running the country.
Yeah, that's the point.
Not everyone's been firebombed, have they?
He's supposed to be running the country. He is supposed to be showing leadership, and his interview with Tom Baldwin was fascinating, but at the end, and it's nice that we see a different side of him.
Isn't this the masochism strategy? So taking it on. If he'd turned up and said, "Oh, everything's marvellous, it's all going terribly well," we'd all be sitting here going, "Well, he's out of touch."
That's just too simplistic.
Should we look at the front page of the Sunday Express tomorrow, which is, I guess it's related to this. The UK reads the headline. The UK is crying out for politicians with real principles. After U-turns farce, a new poll says the public doesn't know what our PM stands for. Linda, you mentioned that, of course, already. Is Britain crying out for politicians who believe in something?
Absolutely. That's a critical thing, because what you actually need when you've got a leader is you need someone that can engage and therefore resonate with the public. Now, what Nigel Farage does do, and this is what has spooked the Labour Party, is he resonates with the public. Now, there are some politicians who can do that, but there haven't been very many at all. And what people now want is a leader that understands what their purpose is, understands what their vision is and what they're trying to do to try and put matters right in this country. And they clearly believe they do not have one at the moment.
Or better still, understood the country, which he fundamentally doesn't.
Keir Starmer, does he not understand the country, Paul?
I think he understands it very well. And if you look at the National Health Service 10-year plan being launched next week, I think that will show you that we believe in the things that people care about, which is faster appointments and more doctors and nurses.
OK, can I ask you then, if the Prime Minister does indeed understand the country well, he's got his finger on the pulse of the nation, why have there been so many U-turns recently?
Well, there have been 3, haven't there? And on each occasion...
Well, 4 if you include the regretting the Island of Strangers.
I mean, that was a strange for him. We quite liked that speech, didn't we, when that came out?
I liked it, yeah.
We thought that was a good line. I mean, he's saying the choice of words was unfortunate because it had some echo of Enoch Powell. You go through Enoch Powell's speeches, he never said that himself.
So you've got 4 U-turns, right? You've got the rape gangs, you've got Island of Strangers...
I'm dismissing that.
You've got welfare. Why, if he's in touch, why the U-turns?
Well, but you can argue that actually by listening to people, that's why you've changed the policy.
Oh, no, I've heard that argument.
Well, that's a good argument, isn't it?
It's not a good argument.
He's listening to what people are saying, including his Labour MPs, and then changed the policy accordingly.
All those years in opposition, in order to prepare for office, it does not take that long to prepare a vision and a core message. Most medium-sized corporates, big companies, commercial organisations do this as a matter of course, and he is running the country.
OK, right. Thank you, panel. Fascinating discussion. Let us know what you think at home. gbnews.com/your say. There's a story breaking in the Sun newspaper tomorrow, which I'll tell you about in just a second. But first of all, time now for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win £54,321 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life. Somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, coming up, after Donald Trump once again placed himself front and centre of the international news agenda, he's also had a significant political win back at home, whilst also snubbing the star-studded wedding of Jeff Bezos. We'll cross live to the United States next with Nelson Aspen, and indeed, shortly after that, this breaking story in the Sun newspaper, which I'll briefly tell you about now. Sarah Everard's killer, Wayne Couzens, has been secretly whisked to an NHS hospital for a very expensive operation. More of that in just a tick.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's completely unacceptable to have a biological man in a female-only changing room. And from my personal point of view, I was abused as a child, and having a man in our changing room is a particular trigger for me. And the trust just did nothing about it, so we had to take things further.
So you complained to the trust about this. You and your colleagues got together, and they just ignored you. They didn't really care about it.
Not a day. They didn't care at all. We wrote a letter of concern. 26 of us signed it. And the response was that we needed to be re-educated, we needed to broaden our mindset, and they backed this trans person 150%.
So, Karen, this person who identifies as Rose, on one occasion they were staring at you or your colleagues' breasts in this changing room and asking, are you getting changed yet? Another of your colleagues had a panic attack. I don't think it was you. Is that accurate?
That was me.
And what do you make of people who call you a TERF? Or a bigot for complaining about this kind of thing, because that's what they say.
They do, yes, but there's been loads of positivity out there for us. There's loads of positive comments, and I'm not a bigot. I'm not a TERF. I'm just fighting for what's right. I want to feel safe when I get changed. Yeah. There's what's happened to me could have happened to other people, and I want to be a voice for them to stand up and come forward and say this is not acceptable.
Karen, you're a brave lady, you and your colleagues, and I'm glad, actually, it was Wes Streeting who intervened in the end, one of the more competent Labour ministers, who told Darlington Hospital, sort this out, pull your finger out, don't be so ridiculous, and he got involved and he sorted it out for you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A a household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Ben Leo tonight, only on GB News. Let's very quickly see the front of the Sun on Sunday front page. It's a story that really moves me, actually, emotionally, with anger as well. Sarah Everard's killer, the poor girl, Wayne Couzens, an absolute beast. He's had an operation on the NHS costing £17,000. It's an op on his back, which would normally, for the public, see them be waiting for 18 odd weeks to get treated. He had security escorts from the hospital costing around 10 grand or so. Yeah, we're going to discuss that in some more depth, particularly with Peter Bleksley in just a second, so stick with us. So just to reiterate, Wayne Couzens, Sarah Everard's killer, a vile, despicable... He's not really a human being in my eyes, but there he is. He's had an operation on the NHS costing £17,000 of your money. Right, we move on. We've seen a bumper week of news coming from across the pond as President Donald Trump placed himself front and centre, of course he did, of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, appearing to completely bypass his allies, including our own Prime Minister, in the process. Trump's also had a big win on home soil this week with a Supreme Court ruling backing the President in his repeated run-ins with federal judges. Well, I'm joined now by US journalist Nelson Aspen from the Big Apple. Nelson, a big week of news over in the States. What would you say has been the biggest story?
You need a scorecard to keep up. I'm not sure that you can choose one, but the Supreme Court decision that you just finally referenced out of that long list of Donald Trump accomplishments this week is probably his personal favorite and the most significant. Before they took their summer holiday, the Supreme Court justices decided in a 6-3 opinion to keep the lower courts from enacting injunctions to foil Donald Trump's federal executive actions. So that was just one of many decisions they made sort of in the Trump favor. But that particular one will enable him to move forward without what he refers to as lawfare, without constantly being stymied by lower judges' opinions, Ben.
Yeah, interesting. Also, with regards to the Iran situation, I praised President Trump last week for not informing our Prime Minister, not informing the EU or NATO or the UN or getting reviews. Do you know what I really admired about your President, Nelson? Is that he just got on with it. He realised what he had to do for the benefit of his country, and also for the benefit of the world as well, leading by example, and he just cracked on with it.
A leader leads, and for the most part, except for his most reliable opponents, people around the world were supporting his decisive action. And he has taken issue with any media that has tried to dispute that and the success of the operation. And he took a victory lap at The Hague as well. So he's having a very good week. He doesn't need to go to Venice for somebody's wedding.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I'd go to that either. Nelson, there's an interview, I'm not sure if you've seen it, I'm going to pounce this on you now, with Eric Trump, the president's son, who has spoken to the Financial Times and hinted that perhaps he or Don Jr., his brother, could perhaps take over the mantle when President Trump is finished and done in 2029, or indeed maybe even Barron Trump, their half-brother. What's your take on that? Do you see a Trump dynasty in the White House?
I think that's a risky proposition, and you should really talk to Jeb Bush about that scenario if you want to pursue that further. I think there are a lot of rising stars in the Republican Party, starting with members of Trump's own inner circle like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. But if the Trump boys want to put their hands up, they can go ahead and do that. They're doing very well with their side businesses at the moment. So I recommend, for their own peace of mind, to eschew politics.
Yeah, I think the Trumps have just launched Trump Mobile in the US as well. Who do you think will run for president in 2029 then from the Republican side? J.D. Vance?
I think there are a lot of opportunities for names that we've yet to talk about from among senators and governors, but certainly J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have made their mark and are increasingly popular within their own party.
OK, and just finally, before I let you go, Nelson, to enjoy the beautiful day in Manhattan, I'm sure, what do you make of... look, just for viewers at home, I don't care about Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice to Lauren Sanchez. Couldn't give a damn. But it's a $20 million wedding. Everyone's there, Ivanka Trump, all the celebrities. It's a beat that you probably would have been covering, Nelson, some years ago as the world's leading showbiz reporter. Why didn't President Trump go to his wedding?
He's busy. Look at the accomplishments we've just been talking about for the last few minutes. He really does have his priorities correct. I laugh when people say, "Oh, he took off for golf," and that was part of his ruse to make the strike against Iran. He pretended to go to golf. You know, he does know the job demands of being the president. So I don't think it was an accident. And the last figure I heard for the Bezos Sanchez wedding was $50 million, with an additional million spent to give to Venice to try and quell their distaste with the environmental impact all of these very green people are wreaking upon the city.
Yeah.
So yeah, Trump had better things to do, more important things to do.
Yeah, indeed. Nelson Aspin, thank you very much. Love speaking to you, my friend, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you, Nelson Aspin, US journalist, live from New York. Before we go to the break, this is what we'll be discussing when we come back in a short few minutes. The Sun on Sunday front page. Let's take another look. Killer Cops 17K NHS Operation Fury. This is Wayne Couzens, the beast who murdered Sarah Everard some years ago during COVID. He's had an operation on the NHS, £17,000 worth. Security from the hospital to the prison, back and forth, armed guards, that cost another 10K. A big discussion here to be had about the likes of Wayne Couzens and beasts like him. Back in just a tick.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So the heat is going to be building over the next couple of days across the southeast of the UK, but it's not going to be warm for all of us. There is still some cloud and rain around, all thanks to this weather front across the northern half of the country. But it's that area of high pressure to the south of the weather front. This is where we're going to see that heat starting to build. Where we do say that weather front, we have got a bit of cloud around parts of northern England, seeing some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle across any high ground this afternoon. Also parts of Wales, perhaps seeing the odd spot of rain in places. But to the north and to the south of that front is where we're going to see the best of the sunshine. Perhaps one or two showers across the north of Scotland, but it's the southeast where we see the peak of those temperatures today. 29, 30, perhaps even 31 degrees, so feeling really quite warm in that sunshine. As we then head into this evening, perhaps a bit of a cloudy end to the day across parts of southwest England and Wales, maybe the odd spot of rain over the hills. Generally dry with clear spells further east. Northern parts of England continue to see that weather front as we head into this evening. But for Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, a dry end to the day on Saturday. Still one or two isolated showers across the very far north of Scotland. Perhaps some of these quite blustery and heavy in places. But generally staying quite mild as we head through this evening period. That weather front continues across central areas, generally easing a little as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning, although still the odd spot of rain just in places across the very far west. But elsewhere, plenty of clear spells on offer. Still one or two isolated showers just feeding into the very far north of Scotland, but it is going to be a really mild night across the country. In the south, perhaps the mid, maybe even high teens as a minimum. A little bit fresher further north, but still likely staying in the double figures. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday for much of the country. Still some patchy rain and drizzle feeding in across parts of Wales, into parts of Northern Ireland too. Some outbreaks of rain across the very far northwest of Scotland. But for much of the country, a dry day, plenty of sunshine on offer again. But again, feeling very, very warm across the southeast. 30 or 31 degrees.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Let's take a look at some of the more front pages that have just dropped hot off the press. Starting with The Independent, the headline reads, welfare cuts could trap women with domestic abusers. The Prime Minister's benefits overhaul puts disabled women at risk. That's according to campaigners. The Mail on Sunday, Tel Aviv blasts BBC for failing to cut hour-long live broadcast of vile outburst as police face demands. Now arrest the punk band who led Death to Israelis chants at Glastonbury. And a picture just at the bottom there. Apparently Orlando Bloom, the actor, and Sydney Sweeney, I'm a big fan of Sydney, an actress, may have caught the love bug in Venice. Lucky him. The Sun on Sunday, let's talk about this one. This one has really, do you know what, it's really wound me up. I feel such a deep sadness when I think of Sarah Everard. Anyway, the headline reads, taxpayers fund back surgery. Killer cop 17k NHS Operation Fury. Sarah's murderer has a hospital trip. Joined now by my panel, Linda Jubilee, Paul Richards and Peter Blexley. So, guys, let's get this front page back up. Do you know what? Not a lot makes me sick these days, but seeing this guy's face, Wayne Couzens, as a reminder, he kidnapped Sarah Everard during COVID, showed his police badge, tricked her into getting into a police car and kidnapped her, of course, and took her from London to Kent, where he took her life, amongst other disgusting things. Anyway, now he's had a back operation on the NHS, a 17k operation. He had a 10k armed guard escort from the hospital to the prison and back. And yeah, Peter Blexley, your thoughts on this cretin?
If anybody has been pushed down a waiting list, courtesy of Wayne Couzens, that abominable piece of garbage needing treatment, that would be a scandal. If he's jumped a queue, if somebody's been delayed, that will be utterly, utterly outrageous. There were some practical challenges for the prison service and the police who had to escort and protect him, because part of the risk assessment was that Couzens is at great risk from the public, understandably so. So that added to some complexity to the arranging of all of this. Well, what I will say is that let's hope that this fluid removal from his spine is utterly unsuccessful and that the procedure was painful and that the matter turns out to be anything other than minor.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just for reference, the waiting list for this kind of operation is a spinal lumbar, is that what it's called? It is normally 18 weeks for you and I on the NHS, Linda?
Yeah, it's quite a serious. It's a lumbar puncture, I think, isn't it? It's the needle has to go in between the vertebrae to drag out the fluid, and he must have some other kind of condition. They're trying to track what it is by testing the fluid. I think that's the purpose of it. I don't know what you do about it. I mean, I think they should have left him
a source, sorry to
languish
interrupt.
for a bit longer.
Yeah, a source has told The Sun on Sunday, people are angry at how he was treated and how much effort the authorities went to, as well as how much it cost. Couzens is constantly moaning in jail and had been complaining about back pain, so was assessed in healthcare at the prison. The security operation to get him to and from the hospital would have easily run to more than £10,000. He was taken straight from his cell into a Category A van, which is bulletproof, with a custody manager and at least 4 prison officers. And while he was at the hospital, armed police would have been on guard. Couzens was classed as a high-risk escort, not because he poses a danger, but because, as Peter Blexley, as you've just said, because of the danger to him from the public. Paul Richards.
Well, what's the alternative, though? I mean, this is sickening and it's horrible. And certainly if there's any evidence that he jumped a queue, then really serious questions have to be asked. But, you know, we put people in prison and when they get ill, we treat them. We don't just let them die. Now, you can have a conversation about the death penalty, if you like.
Well, let's have that conversation, then.
Because I know that's something you want to talk about.
Wayne Couzens, Axel Rudabakana, you know, Lee Rigby's killers. Let's have them.
In the absence of a death penalty, we have to treat people in hospital if they get ill.
Isn't it about time, Peter, we had a discussion about capital punishment?
Funnily enough, I'm not a fan of capital punishment.
No? Why not?
No, because the real punishment is for people like Harold Shipman and Fred West, who could not face every single day for the rest of their sad, pathetic lives being incarcerated. They have no future, They have nothing to look forward to, except every day they have to face the consequences of their abominable actions.
Can I just say though, Peter?
Sticking a rope round their neck is giving them an easy way out.
But are they really feeling the consequences of their actions in British prisons? They've got TVs, they've got games consoles, they've got access to cooking and doing, you know, trips and whatever.
So much so that Harold Shipman, Fred West and many, many other murderers couldn't face those consequences.
And also, you know, people that don't like the state are quite happy to see the state then take lives. They all make mistakes if they did.
Well, no, Linda,
innocent people would be killed by
my argument has always been with the death penalty is in absolutely nailed-on cases where there's video proof that they've even pleaded guilty, whatever. Not, you know, just absolutely nailed on. Axel Rudabakana, for example, the South Pole
I know
scumbag.
exactly how you feel, but the problem is what underpins that absolutely nailed on. I've covered literally hundreds of court cases from magistrates all the way to the Bailey, and I've seen juries come in with the most extraordinary verdicts that I've been unable to understand. I've regarded them as incomprehensible. And the problem is, one mistake is one life too many.
And I completely get your viewpoint, Ben, completely. When I think of Cousins, when I think of Rudabakana wouldn't have applied because he was a juvenile at the time of his offending, so that probably wouldn't have applied to him. And when I think of that repugnant Levi Belfield and others, it really challenges my thinking.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want Belfield banged up for his sad, miserable life every day. And believe you me, the prisons they're in and the company they keep is dreadful.
Yeah, they are in the worst prisons.
With the worst people.
Yeah. Roy Whiting, another one. Who was the serial killer? Was it Ian Huntley?
Huntley, yeah.
You know, I just think...
I get it, Ben.
Look, it's I don't normally get emotional like this, but I remember... I think of poor Sarah and what was going through her mind that evening when she was being transported and kidnapped from London to Kent. Did she know?
I know.
At what point did she know she was being kidnapped? What was Wayne Couzens saying to her? Was he taunting her? I don't know. I imagine being her family. And then seeing...
so upsetting.
Imagine...
And then seeing this scumbag again.
Imagine if the Metropolitan Police had done their job properly when they went to McDonald's, not far from where I live, when he'd flashed at that McDonald's, he'd have been nicked before he had the opportunity to kill Sarah.
And there were several more examples of him, actually, that the Metropolitan...
But that was the most glaring one. He should have been nicked days before.
All right, let's talk about something else. I don't want to see that guy's face again for the time being. In the Times newspaper, some new revelations, some new data. Every day, 37 people, on average, are having their phones stolen in the West End of London. I can believe it. I've seen it myself. The Metropolitan Police data reveals that almost 231,000 phone thefts and robberies were recorded over the past 4 years in the capital, representing a threefold increase in such offences. Who's to blame for this? Paul.
Well, it's
Sadiq Khan?
No, it's not Sadiq Khan. It's the phone manufacturers, because they will just replace the stolen phone, and the phones still have value. Thieves go after something that's valuable, don't they? They'll steal the lead off a roof, or they'll go for the phone that's valuable. If you make the phone disabled,
looks like he's about
if you disable, well, this is a serious point, Peter. If you disable the phone,
I know it's very
has
serious.
no value, then the thieves aren't going to steal something that has no value.
I know it's very serious.
So you make those phones worthless.
It's the same kind of nonsense that lefties came out with car theft, OK? And so, of course, governments and the police went to motor manufacturers and said, make them more secure, make them more difficult to steal, and they've done that for generations, and what has happened, the villains have kept up in front, they've been in front with the technology, and those high-value cars still get stolen today. This government has done nothing. This government has done nothing for policing and crime in the year it's been in power. All that Starmer and Yvette Cooper did was the temerity to say about 13,000 extra police officers into neighbourhood policing, which is a lie, which is not even true. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a scam. And because lefties don't really like the police, Labour don't really like the police, they have not repaired the catastrophic damage done by that lamentable Tory party.
I want to see more neighbourhood police patrols, right? And I am a supporter of the police, which is why I stood for Police and Crime Commissioner. But in this case, it's about the phone manufacturers making those phones worthless. And in a fell swoop, you stop the business model. Well, they're not going to steal something that has no value.
Get a grip on policing. Get Get a grip on policing. Disband the College of Policing. Get the public the policing they want.
The responsibility has to lie with the criminal. Fundamentally, that is fundamentally the point here. What you've got to do is get more police out onto the streets, and we've got to be spending more money.
Correct. The criminals rule the streets. It's why you've got epidemics of phone theft, bicycle theft, shoplifting, harassment of women and girls, and a lot worse, the lot. The streets are run by the criminals, and your lot have done nothing in this year to repair all the catastrophic damage done by the pathetic Tories beforehand.
OK.
Police is important. Get it sorted.
Indeed. Peter Blakeslee, thank you very much. I just want to say, Peter Blakeslee, people have been saying on your side tonight that they want me to tell you that you have a lot of support for what you say.
Well,
pass you on the message.
That's very kind. Thank you, everybody.
Can we very... Sorry, Paul. Some people like you as well.
We're all big fans of Peter, and especially today on Armed Forces Day. That's why I was wearing that tie. Nobody mentioned this earlier, but that's why that's...
Is that why, Peter?
Yes, of course. Armed Forces Day.
Yeah.
Fly the flag proudly. They are the very best of us, our armed.
What we have in common, we all are patriots.
Well, that's the point, and but I'll just say now, that's the point of this channel. Although, you know, Paul Richards is here giving the left of centre view. Sure. I was about to rib you then by saying the far left view, but you know, the left of centre view. You've got Peter Blakeslee and Linda, and I'd like, you know, this channel is all about having these kind of conversations and debates, maybe getting heated at times, which I think is OK. But then at the end of the day, being able to civilly get on and, you know, carry on with our lives. We all have the same interest in heart, which is the great British country and the great British people are making it a better place to live.
He's a lovely fella.
Who? Me?
We don't agree on very much, but that Paul, he's a lovely fella.
Right. After that, coming up to on Benio tonight.
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
It's our big weekend fails. If you're new to the show, it's the time of the week, or the time of the show rather, where we pick a moment from the week where we think was an absolute fail or an absolute joke, and we share our reasons why. Back in just a tick.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're heading further afield for a holiday over the next few days, windy in Greece, but widespread sunshine for much of the Mediterranean, and I suspect increasingly hot in many places. We've got a keen breeze for Madeira and the Canaries, nothing unusual for the time of year. The heat continues to build through Spain, Portugal, France and Italy. Temperatures high 30s and in some places low or even mid 40s. Very breezy through Greece, but staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo tonight. Time now for our big weekend fails. But before we get into that, one very quick comment which made me laugh from Paris Stilton. I mean, the username makes me laugh as well. Paris Stilton, good evening. You said happy birthday to Henry VIII, who would have been 534 years old today had he had better medical care. And it is indeed Henry VIII's birthday today. He was born 28th of June. 1491. So happy birthday, Henry VIII. Right, time now for big weekend fails. Mine is the US Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth, who was asked a bit of a woke question by a member of the US media. Take a look.
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things.
Linda, do you care that Pete Hegseth said our bombers and the boys when there was one female pilot?
Not really.
Isn't it just like saying, hey, guys?
Yeah, I don't particularly like that either. And it would be good if you recognised there was a female pilot. But do you know what? I just don't want to sweat the small stuff. Yeah. That was an incredibly serious situation where we were on the precipice of a nuclear exchange, and I don't think it matters.
Yeah, they're just banging on about, stuff like that. OK, let's look at Paul's. One quick.
Free, free! Free, free! All right, but have you heard this one, though? Death to the IDF! Death.
So what I've learned is that Bob Vylan is in fact the name of the band. It's like Led Zeppelin, right? So but whoever that person is, and I believe they don't give out their name, hopefully has been arrested by now.
Yeah, they're just a bunch. I mean, the crowd as well. We've done it to death, but the crowd, a bunch of morons. Peter, this is yours. Let's take a look.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Peter Blexley, he said he regrets that.
Keir Starmer's Rivers of Blood moment. Oh, no, sorry, I meant, of course, Island of Strangers, right? And for them to have the temerity to say it wasn't written by him, he didn't know it was in there, he hadn't read it before, well, you should. You're the Prime Minister. Get a grip.
I mean, he's not working behind the bacon counter of Woolworths or the modern-day equivalent. He's the Prime Minister.
When I worked...
supposed to read speeches.
When I worked in Woolworths, I knew the understanding of the meaning and the importance of that speech by Enoch Powell.
You worked in Woolies, did you?
Yeah, it was my first full-time job working in Woolworths, 16.
What were you doing?
Woolies.
I was a warehouseman. Loved it, great job.
I think if I worked in Woolies at 16, I'd probably want to work on the pick and mix counter, and I'd probably be sacked for swiping them.
I love the pick and mix.
The pick and mix.
Just saying, pick and mix.
Loved it.
Right, RIP Woolworths. Linda, this is yours.
So no, Nigel Farage isn't interested in Wales. He's interested in Nigel Farage.
I mean, it's the same thing, but I was watching that live this morning and I'm thinking, we're going OK, we're doing OK, we're doing OK. And then he opens his mouth and suddenly, Nigel Farage is still there, living rent-free in his brain, and his name just pops out. He has got to stop talking about him.
The problem is, though, everyone's talking about him. It would be odd if he didn't talk about him. The whole country's talking about him.
No.
Paul,
He's got to stop talking about him.
I saw on your Instagram this week, were you with Peter Mandelson.
I was indeed with Peter Mandelson this week, yes.
Where was that?
That was at a restaurant in London at a Labour Party fundraising dinner. And Johnny Reynolds was there as well with the new copy of the Industrial Strategy.
Actually, I bumped into Lord Mandelson at the US Independence event at the Ambassador's residence.
Yeah, he's in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, and Nigel Farage was pictured speaking to him. In fact, Nigel Farage got some stick for daring have a joke with Lord Mandelson.
Well, Peter Mandelson is a very nice man. I mean, he gets on with all kinds, you know. He likes a good chat behind the scenes.
How much money did you raise?
It raised quite a lot of money, I believe, yeah.
How much?
Well done. Good stuff. Right, thank you, panel, for tonight. Some breaking news very quickly. England under-21s have won the European Championship, and, of course, they beat Germany 3-2, yes, in a dramatic final in the Slovakian city of Bratislava. England went 2-0 up with goals from Harvey Elliott and Amari Hutchinson. Germany equalised to force extra time, but Jonathan Rowe got the winner for England. So, just to clarify, England under-21s are the European champions. They beat Germany to make it that much sweeter. Thank you for your company tonight. Ben Leo tonight, late edition is next. Peter and Alan will be here. Peter Blexley's going home, unfortunately. Thank you to Linda. Sorry, Steve and Alan. Linda's going. Thank you for your company. And Paul as well. And Peter, you're off. Thank you for your company. See you in just a tick.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a very warm day for many of us today, and that heat continues to build over the next couple of days, particularly across the southeast, all thanks to an area of high pressure that's building from the south of the UK, pushing its way north and eastwards over the next couple of days. We do still have this weather front across northern areas, though. That will continue to bring some cloud and rain as we head through the rest of Saturday evening, mainly across northwestern parts of England, perhaps into northern parts of Wales, southwest England too. But elsewhere, generally a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells into the early hours of Sunday morning, and a very mild night to come too. Temperatures in the south not dropping below the high teens for many places. A little fresher further north, but still staying well into the double figures for most places. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday, perhaps still quite a cloudy start across parts of Wales, southwest England. We could continue to see some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle. Elsewhere in England, though, generally a dry and bright start to the morning, and a similar picture too across parts of Northern Ireland. Scotland generally seeing some early sunshine as well, plenty of clear and blue skies through the morning. One or two isolated showers across the very far northeast, but elsewhere staying dry to start on Sunday. That cloud does continue across parts of Wales, southwest England as we head through the afternoon. Maybe one or two isolated showers just feeding into Northern Ireland, and some longer spells of rain into northwest Scotland too. But elsewhere, generally staying dry, plenty of sunshine on offer as we head through Sunday afternoon. And again, feeling really warm across the southeast, highs of 29, 30, potentially 31 degrees, and even across parts of Scotland into the low 20s. A very mild start to the day on Monday, potentially a little warmer start on Monday compared to Sunday. The northwest does continue to see some outbreaks of potentially quite heavy rain feeding in from the northwest, but for much of England and Wales, a dry and bright afternoon to come. And the temperatures likely peaking on Monday or Tuesday, around 34, potentially 35 degrees, but then feeling fresher by the middle of the week.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, It happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?